Good morning, family. Welcome to today's Lessons for Life. Today is Wednesday, August 12, 2009, and we're reading in 2 Kings chapter 4. And as always, especially for this chapter, because I'm not going to go through the whole chapter, but I encourage you to read it for yourself, see what you get from it, email us, and we'll put it on the blog. Because Lessons for Life, for this chapter, there's really so much in this chapter, but I'm just taking from the first portion of it, which is a story of the widow woman. And she says to Elisha, we see now, we were talking about Elijah before, now Elisha, and we'll see some of the works of Elisha in this chapter. But she tells Elisha that she only has a little bit of oil, and she's a widow woman, and he tells her to go get as many jars as you can, borrow from your neighbors, and to start pouring the oil. And you see as she pours the oil that all the jars are full, that she was able to even borrow until she ran out of jars, and then the oil stopped running. And one of the lessons that we can get, there's actually more than one lesson we can get from this story, but one of the lessons that I want to bring up for Lessons for Life, which was one of the first things that I really thought about as I read this entire chapter, was just how if she only had gotten a few bottles of or containers to hold the oil, she would have only had a few containers of oil. But as many containers of oil that she was able to get was how much that the Lord actually allowed the oil to keep pouring into those containers. So she, whatever number of containers she got, that was her limit. So she limited herself. If she had got, a million containers of oil, the oil would have kept going until she finished filling up all those containers of oil. So she was her own limitation. And if you think about it for our own lives, we are our own limitation too. As much as we can think, or as far as we can, think about, the Lord is able to provide for us too. But we limit ourselves in our thinking. We limit ourselves in our ability and things that we can do. Somebody may want a business, but they'll say, "Oh, I can't do, have a business," or "I have a business now, and I may want a larger business, with hundreds of employees." But you know what? In actuality, I limit myself, and by saying, "Oh, well, let me just have a little bit, and it's easier to manage, and such, whatever." But we are the ones that limit ourselves, because the Lord, as we see in this chapter with this widow woman, would have continued to fill up her jars, as many containers as she was able to get from her neighbors or whoever she got them from. So one lesson we can get is stop limiting ourselves and stop holding ourselves back, because the Lord is more than able to fulfill what our desires are. So we need to really take that. That's I think a great lesson that we can get from this, because however, whatever we've achieved in life, whatever successes we've enjoyed, we could be doing more and going that much further, because the Lord is able to provide that for us. So that was one lesson I got from reading this chapter. And even as you read the story, she had to do some work in order to be able to get this oil. She had to provide the jars, provide the containers. So this is actually the balancing part of this message, where you don't just sit back and expect God to give you the containers, continue to give you the jars, and then fill it up with oil too. She had to go out and get the containers, get the jars, get the whatever was going to hold the oil. So there is a requirement on our part, but if we put our foot forward, if we step forward, if we come forward with the jars, the Lord is able to fill our jars with oil. So the main lesson I want to get from this really portion of this chapter is just about not limiting ourselves in the things that we want to do, and realizing that God is able to provide for us and to meet our dreams, our desires, or whatever it may be. So we need to get past our own selves and really put ourselves in position. That's how we get the jars. Put ourselves in a position to receive those, these different things from the Lord, whatever it is that you might have personally, individually, or whatever. But we need to put ourselves in position, and that's how we come with the jars, with the containers ready for it to be filled up with oil. So that's, like I said, one of the lessons you can get from this story, and there's other lessons you can get from the other stories in this chapter. So with that, create yourself a wonderfully blessed day today, and we'll talk again tomorrow.